Hello everyone, this is Clossi, and today we're going to be answering the question, do you go low or high? How do you decide? Let's find out. In our first example here, white approaches, and then we find ourselves playing a very normal Joseki. But in reviewing my students' games recently, I've noticed that you have trouble deciding between the low move or the high move, and oftentimes we'll get it wrong. So what is the difference between the third line and the fourth line? Well, I have a couple of theories that I usually tell my students. Third line is usually good for safety, security, and territory. So if you need a base, you want to go third line. Fourth line is usually good for developing and influence. So let's take this one for example. If we play our Joseki at the double-digit Q level, it would be slide, block, make a base. But here, this is a small mistake. I have support at the stone right here, so I actually don't need to be on the third line. Rather, I should develop and go to the fourth line instead. So the fourth line here would be perfect, not just for making a base, but also developing the bottom, thanks to our support stone right here. If we switch to this side, however, after sliding, we don't want to go right here. We're not developing the left side, we're settling the left side. So therefore, making a base and being safe on my opponent's side of the board is more recommended. And remember that third line is your safety line. Another example you can think of is when playing an extension from your corner. If we play an extension on the right and try to be safe, you can see it looks a little bit awkward because we're on the third line instead of the fourth line. We don't need to be safe on our side of the board. So here, the fourth line would be better. You can make a 5-space jump from both corners and get to a very common position known as the Sanren-sei, or the 3-star formation. On the bottom, however, if you play that same extension, you can see that it's a little bit different. White can easily undercut you here and threaten all kinds of pincers and invasions, and in order to block, you would have to block on the third line, and that just feels very awkward. So you would rather play an extension on the bottom on the third line because you don't have support. So here you would want to be safe. However, let's say you already play an approach. You actually might shift gears here a little bit. In this position, thanks to my B stone, I now have support on both sides. So now I can make an extension to the fourth line instead. If we go back to our previous position, instead of sliding down and making a base right here, we might actually apply the same principle. We can play an extension from our 3-4 point, and now, thanks to our approach move, we actually have support on both sides, so we can now go to the fourth line, and we find a very common position known as the Kobayashi opening. So going back to our original example, in this Joseki, we're trying to decide if we want to go low or high. Since we're on our opponent's side of the board, I would recommend going low in order to make your base and settle very safely on your opponent's side of the board. While it is possible to go high here, and you might see this in some pro games, it has a different meaning. This one is not about settling or being safe, this one is about developing the center because we have 2 star points. This sort of idea focuses a lot more on the center, and I really don't recommend it until you're at least 5Q+. In our last example, we'll have the exact same Joseki, but this time we have support behind us. So now we'll actually go fourth line instead to develop the top side because we don't need to make a base and play safe here since this is our side of the board. And that's it. Hope you found it helpful.